The champagne tasted like piss, but I kept smiling anyway. That's what you do when your wife drags you to her company's Startup Stars party. You grin, bear it, and count the minutes until you can escape back to your workshop where things make sense. Eli, you remember Brandon, don't you? Mara's voice had that fake sweetness she used when she wanted something. My boss? I shook hands with the golden boy himself. Brandon Lyle, CEO of TechFlow Solutions, all teeth and expensive cologne. The kind of guy who probably practiced his handshake in the mirror. Of course, the furniture guy, right? Brandon's grip was deliberately firm, the way insecure men shake hands. Mara's told me so much about your little hobby business. Little hobby business. Right. My custom furniture company might not have a fancy office in a converted textile factory, but it paid half our mortgage. Still, I smiled and nodded like a good little husband. That's me. Wood and nails, nothing too complicated. I kept my tone light, but inside I was cataloging everything about this guy. The way his eyes lingered on my wife. The way she laughed just a little too loud at his jokes. The downtown bar was packed with TechFlow employees, all young and ambitious, and convinced they were changing the world one app at a time. I felt like a caveman in a room full of rocket scientists, which was exactly how Mara liked it. Oh, they're announcing the dance contest. Sienna Tran appeared at my elbow, already half drunk and grinning. She was one of Mara's colleagues, though from what I'd gathered, they weren't exactly friends. More like friendly rivals in the corporate jungle. Dance contest? I looked around for Mara, but she'd vanished. Probably networking, she'd say later. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Couples competition. Winner gets crowned king and queen of the evening. Sienna's eyes sparkled with mischief. Your wife seems to have found herself a partner already. I followed her gaze across the room. There was Mara, laughing as Brandon spun her around on the makeshift dance floor. Her red dress, the one I'd bought her for our anniversary, swirled around her legs as she moved. Guess I'm flying solo tonight, I said, trying to keep the edge out of my voice. Not necessarily. Sienna stepped closer, her perfume mixing with the smell of beer and ambition. I need a partner, and you look like you could use some fun. Plus, I bet we could show them how it's really done. I glanced back at Mara and Brandon. They were pressed close together, moving to some slow song I didn't recognize. Her hand was on his chest, fingers spread wide like she owned him. You know what? Why not? I offered Sienna my arm. Fair warning, though. I learned to dance in my buddy's garage, not some fancy studio. Even better. I like a man with rough edges. We made our way to the dance floor just as the DJ announced the rules. 5 songs, elimination style, last couple standing wins. Simple enough. The first song was upbeat, something with a lot of drums that made conversation impossible. Sienna was a good dancer, better than me, but she followed my lead without making me feel like an idiot. We moved together naturally, her body fitting against mine in a way that felt both foreign and familiar. Mara and Brandon were still in the running after the second elimination. So were we. I caught my wife's eye across the floor and waved. She smiled back, but it didn't reach her eyes. She doesn't like losing, Sienna whispered in my ear during a slow turn. Neither do I. By the 4th song, we were down to 3 couples. The crowd had formed a circle around us, cheering and clapping. I could see Rhea, Mara's social media-obsessed friend, recording everything on her phone. Great, this would be all over Instagram by midnight. The final song was a tango, dramatic and intense. Sienna pressed herself against me, her back arching as I dipped her low. The crowd went wild. When I pulled her back up, she was breathing hard, her cheeks flushed. We've got this, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. I spun her out and back in, our bodies moving like we'd been dancing together for years. Across the floor, Mara stumbled slightly. Brandon caught her, but the moment of hesitation was enough. When the music stopped, the crowd was cheering our names. Ladies and gentlemen, your king and queen of the evening, Eli Graves and Sienna Tran. Someone handed me a plastic crown and a microphone. The crowd quieted down, waiting for my victory speech. I looked out at all those expectant faces, at Mara standing beside Brandon with her fake smile firmly in place. Well, this is unexpected, I began, my voice carrying across the room. I have to admit, when my wife abandoned me for her boss tonight, I thought I'd be going home empty-handed. A few nervous chuckles from the crowd. Mara's smile flickered. But sometimes life surprises you. Sometimes you find out that while you thought you were playing checkers, everyone else was playing chess. I paused, letting that sink in. Sometimes you discover that your partner has been practicing their moves in the bathroom with someone else's husband. The room went silent. Brandon's face had gone pale. Mara was shaking her head, mouthing no at me. So, I want to thank my beautiful dance partner Sienna for showing me what real teamwork looks like. And I want to thank my wife and her boss for giving me the motivation to win something tonight, even if it wasn't what I expected when I woke up this morning. I handed the microphone back to the DJ and placed the crown on Sienna's head. She was staring at me with a mixture of admiration and horror. The crowd was buzzing now, whispers spreading like wildfire. I could see people looking back and forth between Mara and Brandon, putting the pieces together. Mara pushed through the crowd toward me, her face white with rage. "We need to talk. Now." "I think we've said enough for one evening, don't you?" I kept my voice calm, reasonable. "Congratulations on your performance tonight. Very convincing." Brandon was trying to laugh it off, slapping people on the back and ordering another round for everyone. But I could see the sweat on his forehead, the way his hands shook slightly as he reached for his wallet. "Eli, please." Mara grabbed my arm. "You don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly." I gently removed her hand from my arm. "I understand that you think I'm stupid. I understand that you think I don't pay attention. And I understand that you're probably right about both of those things. But I'm a fast learner." I turned to Sienna, who was still wearing the plastic crown and looking like she'd just witnessed a car wreck. "Thank you for the dance. You're an excellent partner." "Eli, wait!" Mara called after me, but I was already walking away, pushing through the crowd toward the exit. The cold night air hit me like a slap. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, letting the adrenaline fade. My hands were shaking, and I realized I was angrier than I'd been in years. Not just angry, furious. The kind of rage that makes you want to break things, to tear down everything around you and watch it burn. But I wasn't going to lose control. Not yet. I was going to be smart about this. Methodical. I was going to plan every move like I planned every joint and angle in my furniture. Precise, perfect, devastating. Behind me, I could hear the party continuing, but the energy had changed. The music seemed forced now, the laughter too loud. I'd dropped a bomb in the middle of their perfect little corporate world, and the shock waves were just beginning. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. That was either very brave or very stupid. Either way, I'm impressed. Sienna. I smiled for the first time all evening. "Maybe both," I typed back. Another buzz, this one from Mara. "Come home? We need to fix this. Fix this." Like it was a broken vase or a squeaky hinge. Like 20 years of marriage could be repaired with the right words and enough time. I deleted the message without responding and started walking home. The Victorian house I'd spent 5 years restoring was only 6 blocks away, but tonight it felt like a different country. Everything looked the same cracked sidewalks, the same streetlights, the same houses I passed every day, but something fundamental had shifted. I wasn't the same man who'd left for the party 3 hours ago. That guy had been naive, trusting, content to let his wife handle the social stuff while he worked with his hands and minded his own business. This guy was different. This guy was paying attention. This guy was done being underestimated. By the time I reached my front door, I'd already started planning. Step 1 was evidence. Step 2 was strategy. Step 3 was execution. And step 4 was going to be beautiful. The house felt different when I walked in. Bigger somehow, like I was seeing it with new eyes. This was my castle, the place I'd poured my heart and soul into for 5 years. Every piece of trim, every refinished floor, every custom cabinet in the kitchen, all of it mine. Mara's car pulled into the driveway 20 minutes later. I was in my workshop in the basement, pretending to sand a table leg, when I heard her heels clicking across the hardwood floors above. "Eli? Eli, where are you?" I didn't answer. Let her search. Let her wonder. I had work to do. She found me eventually, of course. The basement was my sanctuary, filled with tools and half-finished projects and the smell of sawdust and wood stain. She rarely came down here, said it was too dusty, too masculine, too much like actual work. "There you are." She was still in the red dress, but her makeup was smudged and her hair was disheveled. "We need to talk about what happened tonight." I kept sanding, the rhythmic motion helping me stay calm. "What's to talk about? You danced with your boss. I danced with your colleague. We both won prizes." "Don't be cute, Eli. You humiliated me in front of my entire company." "Did I?" I looked up at her, my face innocent. "How exactly did I do that?" She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Because to explain how I'd humiliated her, she'd have to admit what she'd been doing in that bathroom with Brandon. And we both knew she wasn't ready for that conversation. "You implied things. Made people think what, Mara? That you and Brandon disappeared together for 45 minutes? Because that actually happened. That you came back looking like you'd been wrestling? Because that happened too. That you had lipstick on your teeth and his cologne on your dress? Because... Stop. Her voice was sharp now, desperate. Just stop. I set down the sandpaper and really looked at her. 20 years of marriage, and I was seeing her clearly for the first time. The way she held herself when she was lying, the way her left eye twitched when she was cornered, the way she always found a way to make everything my fault. You want me to stop? Fine. But first, answer me one question. I stood up, wiping my hands on my jeans. How long has this been going on? Nothing is going on. Brandon is my boss, that's all. We were talking about work. In the bathroom? We were talking privately about a promotion opportunity. With your dress hiked up and his hands on your... Enough! She was shouting now, her face red with anger and shame. You're being paranoid and jealous and frankly pathetic. I work hard at that company, harder than you've ever worked at anything, and if you can't handle the fact that I have a career... There it is. I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. The old standby. Make it about my insecurity instead of your behavior. Classic Mara. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. What's gotten into you tonight? Clarity, I said simply. For the first time in years, I'm seeing things clearly. My phone buzzed. A text from Sienna. Check your airdrop. You might find this interesting. I glanced at Mara, who was pacing now, muttering about damage control and office politics. Then I opened my phone. The photo was grainy, clearly taken through a bathroom door that wasn't quite closed all the way. But it was clear enough. Brandon pressed against the sink. Mara's red dress bunched up around her waist, her face turned toward the camera in a moment of pure abandon. Accidentally, sent to my phone when Sienna was trying to delete it from hers. How convenient. You should probably call in sick tomorrow, I said quietly. Mara stopped pacing. What? I said you should call in sick tomorrow. Give yourself some time to figure out your next move. My next move? Eli, you're scaring me. You're acting like... Like what? Like a man who just found out his wife has been cheating on him? Yeah, I can see how that might be scary. I held up my phone, showing her the photo. The color drained from her face. Where did you get that? Does it matter? The question is, how many other people have copies? She sank down onto my workbench, suddenly looking older than her 38 years. Oh God, if this gets out... Your career will be over. Brandon's too, probably. The board of directors tends to frown on executives who can't keep it in their pants, especially when it involves subordinates. She looked up at me with something that might have been hope. You won't let that happen, will you? We can work this out, Eli. We can fix this. Can we? After how many months, Mara? How many times have you been working late or networking or attending mandatory company events? It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. And you know what the funny part is? I might have forgiven you. The old me, the stupid me, might have bought whatever story you cooked up and pretended none of this ever happened. I walked over to my tool cabinet and pulled out a small digital recorder. But then I found this in your purse last week. You left it running after your book club meeting, except it wasn't book club, was it? I pressed play. Mara's voice filled the basement, crystal clear. He's so clueless, Brandon. He actually thinks I go to book club every Thursday. I could probably tell him I was joining the circus, and he'd just nod and ask if I needed him to pack me a lunch. Brandon's laughter. Poor bastard. Does he have any idea how much this house is worth? God, no. He thinks because he did the renovation work himself, it's somehow special. It's just a house, Brandon. A very expensive house in a very good neighborhood that's going to look great in my portfolio when I'm ready to upgrade. And the business? What business? He makes furniture in the basement. It's barely profitable. Once we're together, I can sell this place and we can get something modern. Something that actually reflects success. I stopped the recording. Mara was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks in black rivers. Eli, please. I was angry that night. I'd been drinking. I didn't mean... You meant every word. I put the recorder back in the cabinet, next to my collection of vintage chisels. The question now is what I'm going to do about it. She wiped her eyes, smearing makeup across her face. What do you want? I want you to leave. Leave? Eli, this is my house, too. Actually, it's not. It's my house. I bought it before we got married, I renovated it with my own hands, and I've been paying the mortgage with money from my little hobby business. Your name isn't on the deed, Mara. It never has been. Her face went white. That's not possible. We've been married for 20 years. 20 years in a state where prenuptial agreements are still valid. You remember that piece of paper you signed? The one your lawyer said was just a formality? She staggered backward like I'd hit her. You bastard! You planned this. No, I planned for this. There's a difference. I walked over to my workbench and picked up a manila envelope. Divorce papers. I had them drawn up 6 months ago after I started noticing the late nights and the new clothes and the way you looked at me like I was something stuck to the bottom of your shoe. 6 months ago? But the recording was just confirmation. I'm thorough, Mara. It's what makes me good at what I do. She opened the envelope with shaking hands, scanning the legal documents inside. This is everything. The house, the business, even my car. Your car is in my name, too. Company policy at the dealership. Better interest rates for the primary borrower. I shrugged. Like I said, I'm thorough. You can't do this. I'll fight you. I'll hire the best lawyer in the state. With what money? Your salary goes directly into our joint account, which I closed this afternoon. Your credit cards are in my name. Your 401k has been systematically drained to pay for your shopping sprees and spa weekends. I smiled. Did you really think I wasn't paying attention? She was hyperventilating now, clutching the divorce papers like they might disappear if she held them tight enough. This is insane. You're insane. People they don't plan things like this. Smart people do. Successful people do. People who understand that marriage is a business partnership and that cheating partners need to be cut loose before they can do any more damage. My phone buzzed again, another text from Sienna. Brandon's called an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning. Damage control. Thought you should know. I showed Mara the message. Looks like your boyfriend is already throwing you under the bus. How does it feel to be the expendable one? She crumpled the papers and threw them at me. I hate you. I hate you so much. I know. The feeling is mutual. I picked up the papers and smoothed them out. You have 24 hours to pack your things and get out. After that, I'm changing the locks. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. Maybe Brandon will let you crash at his place. Oh, wait. He's married too, isn't he? Maybe his wife would enjoy seeing that photo. She ran then, stumbling up the basement stairs in her heels, sobbing and cursing my name. I heard the front door slam, heard her car start and screech out of the driveway. I sat down at my workbench and poured myself a glass of bourbon from the bottle I kept hidden behind my paint cans. The silence was beautiful. For the first time in months, the house felt peaceful, but I wasn't done, not even close. I pulled out my laptop and started typing. By morning, I'd have everything I needed to finish what I'd started tonight. Brandon Lyle thought he was smart, thought he could steal my wife and humiliate me without consequences. He was about to learn how wrong he was. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in my workshop planning, measuring twice and cutting once, just like my grandfather taught me. By dawn, I had a strategy that would have made Sun Tzu proud. First stop, Big Mike's auto shop. Mike Kowalski had been my best friend since high school, back when we were both too dumb to know we were supposed to be intimidated by the smart kids. He'd gone into mechanics, I'd gone into carpentry, but we'd stayed close through marriages, divorces, and all the chaos that comes with middle age. His shop was on the rough side of town, squeezed between a pawn shop and a diner that had seen better decades. The smell of motor oil and coffee hit me as I walked through the door. Eli, you're up early. Mike looked up from under the hood of a rusted pickup truck, his massive frame covered in grease stains. What brings you to my palace of automotive excellence? I need a favor, Mike. A big one. He wiped his hands on a rag and studied my face. This about Mara? You look like someone who just found out his dog has fleas. Worse, I found out my wife has been cheating on me with her boss. Mike's expression darkened. He'd never liked Mara, said she had airs and treated me like hired help. That corporate pretty boy? The one with the fancy car? That's the one. Brandon Lyle. Drives a white Tesla, license plate TCHLDR1. Tech Leader 1. Christ, what a tool. Mike pulled out his phone and started typing. I know that car. He brings it here sometimes for detailing. Thinks regular car washes aren't good enough for his precious baby. When's his next appointment? Mike scrolled through his calendar. Tomorrow afternoon, 3 o'clock. Perfect. I need you to do me a favor. A big, messy, smelly favor. I explained my plan. Mike listened with growing delight, his grin getting wider with every detail. You know what, Eli? I always said you were too nice for your own good. Maybe it's time to let your inner bastard out to play. Maybe it is. We shook hands on it, and I headed home to wait for Mara. She'd be back. She had nowhere else to go, not yet. And when she came back, I'd be ready for round 2. She showed up around noon, looking like she'd spent the night in her car. Her makeup was gone, her hair was a mess, and the red dress was wrinkled beyond salvation. "I've been thinking," she said as she walked into the kitchen where I was eating lunch. "Maybe we can work something out." "I'm listening." "You keep the house. I keep my job. We get divorced quietly, no drama, no public humiliation. I'll sign whatever you want." I took a bite of my sandwich and chewed slowly. "And in return?" "You don't release that photo. You don't destroy my career. You let me walk away with some dignity." "Interesting proposal. There's just one problem." "What's that?" "I don't think you have any dignity left to preserve." Her face flushed red. "You son of a—" "Careful now. Remember, you're asking me for a favor." She took a deep breath, visibly controlling herself. "What do you want, Eli?" "I want you to understand something. For 20 years, you've treated me like I was stupid, like I was beneath you, like I was lucky to have you and should be grateful for whatever scraps of attention you threw my way." I stood up and walked over to the window, looking out at the garden I'd planted and maintained for 5 years. "You want to know what I want? I want you to feel what it's like to lose everything. I want you to understand what it means to be powerless. I want you to know exactly how it feels to have someone you trust tear your world apart piece by piece." "Eli." "I'm not finished." I turned back to face her. "You see, I realized something last night. I've been playing defense our entire marriage, trying to make you happy, trying to be good enough, trying to prove I deserved you, but I was playing the wrong game." My phone rang. Sienna's number. "Excuse me for a moment." I answered the call, putting it on speaker. "Hello, Sienna." "Eli, thank God. Are you okay? There are rumors flying around the office this morning. Brandon called that emergency meeting and—" "What kind of rumors?" "People are saying you have compromising photos, that you're going to sue the company, that you're planning to go public with everything." Her voice was excited, almost breathless. "Is it true?" I looked at Mara, whose face had gone pale again. "Some of it might be true. Depends on how cooperative certain people are feeling. This is incredible. Do you know how long people have been waiting for someone to take Brandon down a peg? He thinks he's untouchable." "Nobody's untouchable, Sienna. Everybody has weaknesses." "What can I do to help?" Mara was frantically shaking her head, mouthing no at me. "Actually, there is something. Could you send me copies of any company policies regarding workplace relationships, particularly ones involving supervisors and subordinates?" "Already on it. I'll email them to you within the hour. Eli, whatever you're planning, I'm on your side. Brandon's had this coming for a long time." I hung up and smiled at Mara. "Looks like you're not as popular at work as you thought." "Please don't do this. If those policies get out, if people start talking, people are already talking. The question is whether they're talking about a messy divorce or a corporate scandal that destroys 2 careers and possibly brings down the entire company." She sank into a chair, her head in her hands. "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to call Brandon. Right now. Tell him you need to meet him somewhere private to discuss damage control." "Why would I do that?" "Because if you don't, I'm calling the local newspaper. They love stories about corporate corruption and executive misconduct, especially when there are photos involved." She pulled out her phone with shaking hands and dialed Brandon's number. I could hear his voice when he answered, tight with stress. "Mara, where have you been? I've been trying to reach you all morning." "We need to talk. Privately. Can you meet me at the Riverside Motel on Route 9, room 237? There was a pause. "Is that safe? What if someone sees us?" "Nobody goes to the Riverside Motel unless they're desperate. We'll be fine." "Okay, give me an hour." She hung up and looked at me with something between fear and admiration. "How did you know he'd agree to meet there?" "Because desperate people make stupid decisions, and Brandon Lyle is about to become very, very desperate." I stood up and grabbed my jacket. "You're going to that meeting, Mara, and you're going to do exactly what I tell you to do. Because if you don't, I'm going to make sure that photo ends up on the front page of every newspaper in the state. And if I do what you want, then maybe you get to keep some small piece of your life intact." She nodded slowly, understanding finally dawning in her eyes. The balance of power in our relationship had shifted completely, and there was no going back. "Get in the car," I said. "We have a motel to visit." As we drove toward Route 9, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Complete control. For the first time in our marriage, I was the one calling the shots. I was the one with the plan. And Brandon Lyle was about to find out what happened when you messed with the wrong man's wife. The Riverside Motel looked exactly like what it was. A place where people went to do things they didn't want anyone else to know about. The parking lot was half empty, filled with cars that had seen better years and drivers who had seen better lives. Room 237 was on the second floor, overlooking a dumpster and a chain-link fence. Perfect. This is insane, Mara whispered as we climbed the stairs. What if someone recognizes us? Then they'll have to explain what they were doing here, too. I handed her a key card. You're going to go in there and wait for Brandon. When he arrives, you're going to have the conversation of your life. What conversation? I pulled out a small digital recorder, the same one I'd used to capture her book club confession. You're going to get him to admit everything. The affair, the promises he made, the plans you two had for after your divorce, everything. He'll never... He will. Because you're going to tell him that I'm threatening to go public with the photo, and the only way to minimize the damage is to get ahead of the story. You're going to convince him that confessing everything to you, on record, is the smart play. She stared at the recorder like it was a snake. And then what? Then you're going to find out what Brandon Lyle really thinks of you, and I'm going to find out just how far I'm willing to go to get my revenge. I checked my watch. Brandon would be here in 20 minutes. Everything was falling into place perfectly. Almost too perfectly. But sometimes, when you've been planning something long enough, when you've thought through every angle and prepared for every contingency, the universe decides to cooperate. Today was going to be one of those days. Brandon's Tesla pulled into the motel parking lot exactly on time. I watched from the stairwell as he parked near the back, trying to look casual while clearly terrified someone might recognize him. He was wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses, like he was some kind of celebrity trying to avoid paparazzi. The effect was more ridiculous than disguise, but desperation makes people do stupid things. I waited until he disappeared into room 237, then gave it 5 minutes before following. The door was thin enough that I could hear voices through it if I pressed my ear to the wood. Completely out of control, Brandon was saying. Do you have any idea what this could do to the company, to my reputation? I know exactly what it could do. Mara's voice was steady, controlled. The question is what we're going to do about it. We? There is no we, Mara. There can't be. Not anymore. This whole thing has gotten too complicated. I smiled. Right on schedule. What's that supposed to mean? Mara's voice had an edge now. It means maybe we should cool things off for a while. Let everything settle down. Your husband is clearly unstable. My husband has photos, Brandon. Compromising photos. Of us. There was a long pause. How compromising? Compromising enough to end both our careers and probably your marriage too. Another pause. I could practically hear Brandon's brain working, calculating risks and benefits like the corporate shark he was. Okay, here's what we're going to do. You're going to go back to your husband and work something out. Pay him off, threaten him, whatever it takes. Make this go away. With what money? He's frozen all my accounts, taken my car, filed for divorce, and somehow managed to claim everything we own. That's impossible. You've been married for 20 years? Apparently he's been planning this for months, maybe longer. He had divorce papers ready, Brandon. Professional, legal, airtight divorce papers that leave me with nothing. I heard footsteps, pacing. Brandon was getting agitated. This is a disaster, a complete disaster. Do you understand what will happen if this gets out? The board will have my head. My wife will take me for everything I'm worth. The company stock will tank. What about me? Mara's voice was small now, vulnerable. What happens to me? You? You'll be fine. You're smart, you're talented. You'll land on your feet. Brandon, we had plans. You said we were going to be together. You said you were going to leave Patricia and we were going to start fresh. Silence. Long, telling silence. I said a lot of things, Mara. People say things when they're caught up in the moment. The moment? We've been together for 8 months. We've been having an affair for 8 months. That's different from being together. I could hear Mara starting to cry. You bastard. You complete bastard. Look, I'm sorry if you got the wrong idea. The wrong idea? You told me you loved me. I do love you, in a way. But love and practicality are two different things. I have a company to run, a reputation to maintain. I can't throw all of that away for... For what? For me? For anyone. This isn't personal, Mara. It's business. That was my cue. I pulled out my phone and activated the fire alarm app I'd installed earlier. The motel's ancient alarm system was connected to the internet, a security flaw that most people would never think to exploit. The alarm started blaring throughout the building. Within seconds, doors were opening, and people were stumbling out of their rooms, some dressed, some not so much. I knocked on room 237. Fire alarm! Everyone out! The door opened, and Brandon appeared, looking panicked. Behind him, Mara was hastily gathering her things. Is there really a fire? Brandon asked. Better safe than sorry, I said, pulling my baseball cap low over my face. Buildings got to be evacuated. We all filed out into the parking lot with the other motel guests. It was quite a crowd. Truck drivers, traveling salesmen, and what appeared to be several couples who definitely weren't married to each other. That's when I saw them. 2 men in expensive suits standing by a black sedan, watching the chaos with professional interest. One of them was taking photos with a long lens camera. "Mara," I whispered, nodding toward the men. "Recognize them?" She followed my gaze and went pale. "That's Jim Morrison from the company's board of directors, and the other one is a private investigator the board uses for sensitive matters." Brandon hadn't noticed them yet. He was too busy trying to look inconspicuous while standing next to his distinctive white Tesla in the parking lot of a no-tell motel. "Looks like someone's been watching you two," I said quietly. That's when Brandon spotted the board member. His face went white, then red, then white again. "Oh no. Oh no, no, no." Jim Morrison was walking toward us now, his expression grim. The private investigator stayed by the car, still taking photos. "Mr. Lyle, Mrs. Graves, what a surprise to find you here." Brandon tried to stammer out an explanation, something about a business meeting and confidential company matters, but Morrison held up a hand to stop him. "Save it, Brandon. We've been investigating reports of inappropriate workplace relationships for the past 2 weeks. This is just confirmation of what we already suspected." He turned to Mara. "Mrs. Graves, you'll need to clean out your desk by end of business today. Security will escort you from the building." "You can't fire me for this," Mara protested. "I have rights." "You violated company policy regarding relationships between supervisors and subordinates. You used company time and resources to conduct a personal affair, and you've brought negative publicity to the organization." Morrison's voice was cold, professional. "Trust me, we can fire you for this." Brandon was still trying to salvage the situation. "Jim, let's be reasonable here. We can work something out. The board met this morning, Brandon. Your employment contract has a morals clause. You're terminated, effective immediately. Security will be waiting when you return to collect your personal items." The fire department arrived then, adding to the chaos. But there was no fire, of course, just a malfunction in the alarm system that would mysteriously fix itself once I deactivated the app on my phone. I melted back into the crowd, watching as Brandon and Mara realized their careers were over. Morrison handed them each an envelope, probably legal documents, termination letters, maybe non-disclosure agreements. By the time the fire department gave the all-clear, Brandon was sitting in his Tesla with his head in his hands. Mara was standing alone by the motel office, looking lost and broken. I walked over to her. "Rough day?" She looked up at me with eyes full of hate. "You did this. Somehow you orchestrated all of this." "I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm just here to pick up my wife and take her home." "I'm not going home with you." "Where else are you going to go? You just lost your job, remember? No income, no references, no prospects. Brandon made it pretty clear he's not interested in playing house anymore." She started crying again, big ugly sobs that shook her whole body. "Why are you doing this to me?" "Because you tried to destroy my life, and I decided to return the favor." I put my arm around her shoulders, a gesture that probably looked comforting to anyone watching. "The difference is, I'm better at it than you are. This isn't over." "Yes, it is. You just don't know it yet." I guided her toward my truck, playing the role of concerned husband for anyone who might be watching. But inside, I was calculating my next move. Brandon and Mara had lost their jobs, but that wasn't enough. Not nearly enough. They'd humiliated me, tried to steal my life, treated me like I was too stupid to notice or too weak to fight back. They were about to learn just how wrong they'd been about both of those things. As we drove away from the Riverside Motel, I was already planning Phase 3 of my revenge. It was going to be beautiful. The house felt different when we got home. Smaller somehow, like the walls were closing in. Mara went straight to the bedroom and slammed the door. I could hear her on the phone, probably calling lawyers or friends or anyone who might help her figure out how to salvage her life. Good luck with that. I went down to my workshop and opened my laptop. Time to see how the other half was handling their sudden unemployment. Brandon's social media accounts told an interesting story. His LinkedIn profile still listed him as CEO of TechFlow Solutions, but the comments section was already filling up with questions about his departure. His Twitter feed had gone silent after this morning's motivational quote about overcoming challenges. His wife Patricia's Instagram was more revealing. She'd posted a photo of herself at a spa in Portland, looking relaxed and happy. The caption read, "Sometimes you need to take time for yourself when life gets complicated." Self-care. New beginnings for a fresh start. Either she didn't know about her husband's affair yet, or she was handling it better than expected. My money was on the latter. Corporate wives don't usually last 20 years without developing some serious survival instincts. My phone buzzed. Text from Sienna. Holy crap, did you hear? Brandon and Mara both got fired today. The whole office is buzzing. I typed back, Really? What happened? Nobody knows for sure, but there are rumors about inappropriate conduct in board investigations. People are saying they were caught together somewhere compromising. Wow, that's rough. Rough? Are you kidding? This is the best thing that's happened to this company in years. Brandon was a toxic boss, and Mara was his enabler. Good riddance to both of them. Interesting. I'd assumed Sienna was just being supportive, but it sounded like there was genuine tension between her and my soon-to-be ex-wife. Want to grab dinner sometime this week? I typed. I could use some friendly company while I figure out my next steps. I'd love that. How about tomorrow night? I know a great place downtown. It's a date? Well, not a date, but you know what I mean. I know exactly what you mean. See you tomorrow, Eli. I closed the laptop and leaned back in my chair. Everything was falling into place better than I'd dared hope. Brandon and Mara were unemployed and unemployable. Their reputations in the local business community were shot, and I was starting to build new relationships with people who actually appreciated me, but I wasn't done yet, not even close. The bedroom door opened upstairs, and I could hear Mara's footsteps in the hallway. She was probably looking for me, ready for another round of negotiations or threats or whatever strategy she'd decided to try next. I wasn't interested in talking. I had work to do. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the number I was looking for. Dave Chen, a freelance journalist who specialized in business corruption stories. We'd met at a trade show a few years back, and he'd given me his card, just in case I ever heard anything interesting. Well, I definitely heard something interesting. Dave, this is Eli Graves. We met at the Home and Garden Expo a couple years ago. Yeah, that's right, the furniture guy. Listen, I have a story you might be interested in. Corporate corruption, executive misconduct, board cover-ups, the whole 9 yards. Dave was interested. Very interested. We arranged to meet the next morning at a coffee shop downtown, somewhere public where we could talk freely. Eli, are you down there? Mara's voice echoed down the basement stairs. Yeah, what do you want? We need to talk. I thought we already talked. You're getting divorced, you lost your job, and you need to find somewhere else to live. What else is there to discuss? She appeared at the bottom of the stairs, looking more composed than she had at the motel. She'd changed clothes and fixed her makeup, trying to regain some sense of control. I've been thinking about our situation, she said carefully. Maybe we can work something out that benefits both of us. I'm listening. You want revenge. I understand that. You want to hurt me and Brandon for what we did. Fine. You've succeeded. We're both unemployed, our reputations are ruined, and our relationship is over. She sat down on the edge of my workbench, uninvited. But continuing this vendetta isn't going to help either of us. It's just going to make everything messier and more public. And I'm proposing a truce. I'll sign whatever divorce papers you want. I'll disappear quietly. I won't contest anything or make any claims on your property. In exchange, you stop the public humiliation campaign. I pretended to consider this. What makes you think I'm running a public humiliation campaign? Please. The fire alarm at the motel? The board members showing up at exactly the right moment? You orchestrated all of that. Did I? That's a pretty serious accusation. Do you have any proof? Her jaw tightened. I don't need proof. I know you, Eli. You're smarter than people give you credit for, and you're more vindictive than anyone realizes. Vindictive is a strong word. I prefer thorough. Whatever you want to call it, it needs to stop. We're both adults. We can end this marriage like civilized people. I stood up and walked over to my tool cabinet, running my fingers along the handles of my chisels. Each one was perfectly sharp, perfectly balanced, perfectly suited for its specific purpose. You know what your problem is, Mara. You still think you're in control. You still think you can negotiate your way out of this. Can't I? No, because you're not negotiating from a position of strength. You have nothing I want and nothing I need. You're unemployed, homeless, and friendless. Your lover threw you under the bus at the first sign of trouble. Your reputation is destroyed. I turned back to face her. The only question now is how much worse things get for you before this is over. What do you want from me? I want you to understand what it feels like to lose everything. I want you to know what it's like to be powerless, to be at someone else's mercy, to have your entire world collapse around you. I already know what that feels like. You've made sure of that. Have I? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you still think this is temporary, like you can ride out the storm and rebuild your life somewhere else. I walked closer to her, close enough that she had to look up to meet my eyes. Let me be very clear about something, Mara. This isn't temporary. This isn't a storm you can wait out. This is your new reality, and it's only going to get worse. You can't destroy my entire life over one mistake. One mistake? You've been cheating on me for 8 months. You've been planning to divorce me and take everything I've worked for. You've been laughing about how stupid and gullible I am behind my back. My voice was getting louder now, all the rage I'd been suppressing finally starting to leak out. You want to know what your one mistake was? Your one mistake was thinking I was too weak to fight back. Your one mistake was underestimating exactly how far I'm willing to go to protect what's mine. She was backing away from me now, fear creeping into her eyes. Eli, you're scaring me. Good. It's about time you were scared of something. My phone rang. Dave Chen's number. Excuse me, I said, answering the call. Dave? Tomorrow morning works perfectly. I'll bring everything. Photos, recordings, financial documents, the whole story. No, I don't want money for this. I just want the truth to come out. I hung up and smiled at Mara. That was a journalist from the Portland Press Herald. He's very interested in writing a story about corporate corruption at TechFlow Solutions. Apparently, executive misconduct is a hot topic these days. You wouldn't. I absolutely would. In fact, I just did. She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Who are you? What happened to the man I married? The man you married was naive and trusting and willing to overlook your flaws because he loved you. That man is gone, Mara. You destroyed him. I walked back to my workbench and picked up the divorce papers. You have until tomorrow night to sign these and get out of my house. After that, I'm going to make your life so miserable that you'll wish you'd never been born. And if I sign them? Then maybe, I'll let you disappear quietly. But that's the best offer you're going to get. She took the papers with shaking hands. I need time to think. You have 18 hours. Use them wisely. She turned and walked back upstairs, her footsteps heavy with defeat. I listened until I heard the bedroom door close, then went back to my laptop. I had a story to prepare for Dave Chen, and after that, I had a dinner date with Sienna to look forward to. Oh, for the first time in months, life was looking up. The next morning came too soon and not soon enough. I'd spent the night in my workshop, partly because I didn't want to share a bed with Mara anymore, and partly because I had work to do. The meeting with Dave Chen went better than I'd hoped. He was a sharp guy, mid-30s, with the kind of hungry look that good journalists get when they smell a big story. I gave him everything, the photos, the recordings, copies of company policies, financial documents showing the pattern of executive misconduct at TechFlow. This is incredible, he said, scrolling through the evidence on his tablet. How long have you been collecting all this? Long enough to build an airtight case. The question is, how soon can you run the story? If I can verify a few sources and get some official statements, I could have it ready for tomorrow's edition. Front page, above the fold. What kind of official statements? I'll need to contact the company's board of directors, maybe the state attorney general's office if there are any legal implications, and I'll need to reach out to Lyle and your wife for comment. I smiled. Good luck with that. They're both pretty much in hiding right now. After the meeting, I drove home to find Mara sitting at the kitchen table with the divorce papers spread out in front of her. She'd signed them. There, she said without looking up. Are you happy now? It's a start. I picked up the papers and flipped through them, checking her signature on each page. When are you leaving? This afternoon. I found a furnished apartment across town, month-to-month lease. Good for you. What about work? I'm applying for jobs in other cities. Portland, Boston, maybe New York. Somewhere far away from here. Smart. Your reputation in this town is pretty much shot. She finally looked up at me, and I was surprised to see something that might have been respect in her eyes. You really planned all of this, didn't you? From the very beginning. Not from the beginning, but once I figured out what you were doing, yes, I planned every move. Why? Why go to all this trouble? You could have just divorced me quietly and moved on with your life. I sat down across from her at the table we'd shared for 5 years. Because you tried to destroy me, Mara. You and Brandon thought you could steal my life and leave me with nothing. You thought I was too stupid to notice and too weak to fight back. So this is about revenge? This is about justice. There's a difference. She shook her head. I don't see the difference. The difference is that justice is proportional. You tried to take everything from me, so I took everything from you. You humiliated me, so I humiliated you. You betrayed our marriage, so I ended it on my terms. I leaned back in my chair, studying her face. Revenge would have been burning down your new apartment or having Brandon beaten up in a parking lot. This was just balancing the scales. And now? Are we even? Not quite. There's still the matter of the newspaper story. Her face went pale. What newspaper story? The one that's running tomorrow, front page of the Portland Press-Herald, corporate corruption at local tech company, executive misconduct, and board cover-ups. It's going to be quite a read. You can't be serious. Very serious. The journalist I met with this morning was very interested in the story. Apparently corporate scandals sell newspapers. She buried her face in her hands. This will follow me everywhere. No one will ever hire me again. Maybe. Or maybe you'll find a way to rebuild your life somewhere else. People have come back from worse scandals. Have they? Sure. Look at politicians. They get caught in affairs and corruption scandals all the time, and half of them end up getting re-elected. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the garden I'd spent so much time cultivating. The difference is, politicians have money and connections and teams of lawyers to help them spin the story. You have none of those things. So this is it? This is how our marriage ends? With you destroying my life and walking away? Our marriage ended 8 months ago when you started cheating on me. This is just the paperwork. She was quiet for a long time, staring at the divorce papers like they might change if she looked at them hard enough. I did love you, you know, she said finally. At the beginning, when we first got married. I know, I loved you too. What happened to us? I thought about that for a moment. We grew apart. We wanted different things. You wanted success and status and excitement. I wanted stability and loyalty and peace. And Brandon? Brandon was just the symptom, not the disease. If it hadn't been him, it would have been someone else eventually. She nodded slowly. You're probably right. My phone buzzed. Text from Sienna. Still on for dinner tonight? I have some interesting news to share. I texted back, absolutely, looking forward to it. Mara saw me smiling at my phone. New girlfriend already? Just a friend, someone who appreciates me for who I am instead of trying to change me into someone else. She's welcome to you? Thanks. I'll be sure to tell her you approve. Mara gathered up her copies of the divorce papers and stood up. I'll be out of here by 5 o'clock. Take your time. I'll be out anyway. She paused at the kitchen doorway. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. About the cheating, about the things I said, about all of it. I know you are. But sorry doesn't fix anything. Sorry doesn't undo the damage. No, it doesn't. She left the room, and I could hear her moving around upstairs, packing her things. It was a strange feeling, knowing that this chapter of my life was finally closing. I spent the afternoon in my workshop, putting the finishing touches on a dining room table I'd been working on for months. It was beautiful work, if I did say so myself. Solid oak with hand-carved details and a finish that would last for generations. The kind of craftsmanship that couldn't be rushed or faked or bought with corporate money. The kind of work that required patience and skill and genuine pride. By the time I heard Mara's car pull out of the driveway for the last time, I was ready for whatever came next. Dinner with Sienna was exactly what I needed. She'd chosen a small Italian place downtown, the kind of restaurant where the food was more important than the atmosphere. We got a corner table where we could talk without being overheard. So, she said after we'd ordered wine, I have news. Good news or bad news? Depends on your perspective. The board of directors offered me Brandon's job today. I raised my eyebrows. CEO? That's quite a promotion. Interim CEO, but still, they want someone to clean house and restore the company's reputation. Apparently, I have a reputation for being ethical and competent. Congratulations, you deserve it. Thank you, and there's more. They're also conducting a full investigation into Brandon's tenure. Financial irregularities, inappropriate relationships, possible embezzlement. It's going to be a complete audit. I tried to look surprised. Really? That's thorough. Very thorough. They're bringing in outside investigators, forensic accountants, the whole 9 yards, she said, her voice low and serious. She leaned in, as though sharing a secret, her eyes gleaming with the thrill of it. Between you and me, I think someone gave them a very detailed roadmap of what to look for. Any idea who? I asked, my curiosity piqued by the sudden shift in her tone. She shook her head, a small knowing smile playing at the corners of her lips. No idea at all, but whoever it was, they did their homework. The investigators already know exactly where to look, what questions to ask. It's like they're a step ahead of the game, almost like they've been given a cheat sheet. I raised my glass to that. Well, here's to new beginnings, I said, trying to keep the mood light, but also feeling the weight of what was about to unfold. The plans were set, the pieces in place, and there was no turning back now. New beginnings, she echoed, clinking her glass with mine. The rest of the dinner passed in an easy, comfortable silence, the kind of conversation you only find with someone who doesn't feel the need to impress, to play any games, or force any agendas. Sienna was just herself, smart, funny, refreshingly honest. She had a way of making you feel like you mattered, like you weren't just another person to entertain, but someone worth engaging with. It was a welcome change, especially after the years of manipulation and deceit I'd endured. As we neared the end of dessert, she looked at me with a thoughtful expression, her fork paused midair. "Can I ask you something?" she said, her tone suddenly more serious than before. "Sure," I replied, curious about what she was going to ask. "Are you okay? I mean, really okay? Finding out about Mara and Brandon, going through a divorce, dealing with all this chaos. It has to be taking a toll on you, right?" Her eyes searched mine with genuine concern. I paused, considering the question carefully. I hadn't really thought about it much. I'd been so focused on the actions I was taking, the revenge I was orchestrating, that I hadn't stopped to check in with myself. But now that I was being asked, I realized that I hadn't felt this way in a long time. "You know what?" I said after a moment of thought, my voice steady but tinged with a sense of newfound clarity. "I think I'm better than okay. For the first time in years, I feel like myself again." She raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What do you mean by that?" "I mean," I started slowly, feeling a sense of liberation in the words. "I spent so long trying to be the man Mara wanted me to be, trying to fit into this mold of the perfect husband, the perfect provider, that I forgot who I actually was. I lost track of what I wanted, of what I needed. I forgot what I was capable of." "And now?" she asked, leaning in a little, genuinely interested in what I had to say. "Now," I said with a small smile, "now I remember. I remember that I'm smart, resourceful, and, let's be honest, not nearly as nice as people thought I was. And I'm okay with that." She laughed, the sound light and infectious. "I'm definitely getting that impression," she teased, clearly enjoying the banter. I raised an eyebrow, not entirely sure if she was joking. "Is that a problem?" I asked, genuinely curious. "Not at all," she said with a playful grin. "Nice guys are overrated anyway. Give me someone with a little edge, someone who knows how to fight for what he wants. Now that's interesting." We both stood up from the table and walked toward the door, and I found myself actually feeling a twinge of regret that the evening was ending. It had been a long time since I'd had a conversation that flowed this easily, that felt this real. "Would you like to do this again sometime?" I asked, my voice casual, though the underlying sincerity in the question was clear. "I'd like that very much," she replied with a warm smile, her eyes lighting up. She kissed me on the cheek, a soft and surprisingly tender gesture that somehow felt like the start of something new, something promising. As I walked to my car, I couldn't help but think about how much had changed in just a few days. A week ago, I had been a man in the dark, completely unaware of the betrayal unfolding right in front of me. Now, I was a free man, with new plans, new allies, and a sense of control I hadn't felt in years. I had Sienna's phone number, a front-page newspaper story waiting to break, and a plan for revenge that was almost complete. It felt like the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. When I got home, the house felt different. Bigger, cleaner, quieter. It was mine now. Every inch of it. Every room, every corner, all belonged to me. The weight of the years of living in someone else's shadow was gone. This was my space, my sanctuary, and for the first time in a long while, it felt like a home again. I went down to my workshop, the place where I'd always found peace, and poured myself a glass of bourbon from the bottle hidden behind the paint cans. It was a quiet night, and I knew that tomorrow the newspaper story would break, and Brandon's financial crimes would be laid bare for the world to see. Within a week, he'd probably be facing criminal charges. The irony of it all didn't escape me. He had once thought himself untouchable, and now everything was crumbling. Mara would read about it wherever she had gone to hide, and she would know in that moment that I still had a card left to play. Even her escape wouldn't be an escape. The consequences of her choices would follow her, no matter how far she ran. But tonight, none of that mattered. Tonight, I was just a man in his workshop, surrounded by the tools of his trade, savoring the satisfaction of a job well done. I had taken control of my life again. I raised my glass to the empty room. "Long live the king," I said softly, a small smile playing at the corners of my lips. Outside, the rain began to fall in steady sheets, but inside I was warm, dry, and content. I thought about my next project, about the second chances that lay ahead, and for the first time in 20 years, the future looked bright. It was my time now, The world had changed, and so had I.